it's this amazing city. You have got an entire city in the desert, and you are surrounded by mountains, and you're just nestled in this valley. And you drive out sort of 20 minutes in any direction, and it is like you have stepped back in time 100 years. You can feel like the old West history like bearing down on you, and the light and the sunsets, and it is magic. And my husband was like, okay, we've got to go. We've got to go. And
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Land Stories Live. I am your host, Dave Deniston of Generation Family Properties, LLC, where our goal is to help hundreds of people just like you own land. And we love to tell stories. Today, we have another wonderful story for you here today. I was telling our guest, she's from across the pond over in the UK originally. I was telling her before we got started here, we've had people that have bought land from us over in the UK. So I think it'd be fun for them and maybe other people talking about what is it like to move here. Kind of fun background. She worked at BBC. She was a national broadcaster there and just really needed a change for her and her family. She is the storyteller, the podcaster behind Sam Walker's Desert Diaries, which won a national award for podcasting. So I'm a little nervous. I got like a celebrity here today. And in this podcast, which we're going to talk about and maybe highlight some of the things that happened, was about her move from the rainy suburbs of Manchester in the UK all the way over to the scorched wilderness of Arizona, where she's coming from today, talking to us. I am so glad to have her on to talk about her story. Please help me welcome Sam Walker. Welcome, Sam.
hi, nice to speak to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm here in Minnesota. I got this background of more deserty type place to warm me up today. You know, it's a warm and balmy, like 30 degrees or something out here.
It's rain today in Phoenix, so obviously everyone is very, very excited. We don't see that very often. First rain of the year, first rain in about 3 months. It's a big deal.
And I don't see you getting flooded out of your house, so it's not too bad today.
No, it's not too bad. The washes have not had to kind of get into action today. It's all been good. Yeah.
I think about the UK and coming from the UK, and I think about Seattle area, you know, being very similar, kind of gray skies, rainy, kind of drizzly a lot, not like the heavy rain you can get in Phoenix. You know, it's like torrential downpours. Tell us about that. What was it like? Did you grow up in Manchester in the UK, or where'd you grow up out there?
I grew up in a tiny, tiny town. Well, I kind of had my formative years. The years I remember in a little town called Uppingham, which sounds very English, I know. Uppingham. You can kind of imagine it being in a Jane Austen novel. That's kind of what it was like. There was a little church square with a steeple, little market there a couple of times a week. It was a teeny place, a sort of place that you would see on one of these costume dramas on HBO, and it looks amazing. When you're a teenager, not such fun, because there's no buses, there's nowhere to go out, you know. So it was an amazing, idyllic place. My house was right on the edge of town, so I overlooked fields and fields and fields. Every now and again, over certain seasons, I'd be sitting in my back garden playing, and a fox would run in to try and escape, followed by hounds and horses, and you know, so I was right in the middle of the country there. So I was very lucky to have that kind of vista from my house. So it was, yes, a lovely small little town that come 18 I couldn't get out of fast enough, even though I would love to go back and visit sometime because it was beautiful.
My wife and I have loved watching The Crown. Have you caught that show on Netflix at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you think?
Well, you know, it is fiction, of course. It is based on fact, they say. It is fiction, we must remember that, but I have absolutely soaked it up. And as a bit of an aside, my youngest daughter, who is now 9, has fully embraced the life here in Phoenix and has saved up for a year to buy herself a bearded dragon. She wanted to get into the reptile world. Do you know what she's called that reptile? Princess Margaret.
Princess.
So our bearded dragon is called Princess Margaret. I know beardies are from Australia, not from the desert here in the Sonoran Desert, but you know, it was the closest she wanted to get to having some sort of desert life in our house.
I love it. I love it. So we growing up out there, I've been to the UK, I've been to London. I haven't been out in the country. Is it like rolling green hills out there? Is it like when I think of kind of out in the country in the States, I think of desert or farms, like wheat fields and cornfields. What's it like out there?
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely green fields. I mean, there were lots of farms where I grew up, so kind of, crops as well, and lots of animals everywhere, sheep and cows in all the fields, horses everywhere where I grew up as well. Really beautiful, very, very, very green. When I left my home in Uppingham, I went to university, and then I went on and after that and lived in London. London, of course, slightly less green, although you've got a lot of those incredible parks that are there. I lived by the ocean for a while in the UK, not really like living by the ocean here, a bit colder, bit grayer as water down in Brighton. And then I moved to Manchester about, 16 years ago now, 17 years ago, something like that. And Manchester has some of the most beautiful countryside, as that whole northwest part of England does, but it's wet. It's really, really wet. And it is cold. So I would go out, for walks with the dog over beautiful kind of hills and dales and moors. It's very kind of bleak, blasted countryside in some places. You think of, if you've ever seen any, the movies of Wuthering Heights or read the book Wuthering Heights, is all about the Yorkshire moors and this sort of, vast open plains of heather. It's quite, it's quite overwhelming sometimes just to see these kind of vast stretching out fields. Nothing like you get here, of course. Any big sky you get in the UK is nothing to one compared here, but I've always been someone who really enjoys being outdoors, and not so much in the driving rain though. And that was no word of a lie, one of the reasons I was like, I need to go somewhere where I can hike and not get wet all the time. All the time.
I grew up in Southern California.
Nice.
In LA and in Orange County, moved up to Seattle, which a lot of my family was from Seattle. And the grayness of Seattle really got to me over time. I never felt like depressed, but we moved out here to Minnesota 12 years ago, and it gets cold out here. But like I look out the sky today and it's beautiful blue skies. So we get, even though it's cold, at least it's blue sky. It's not
that makes
gray.
So much difference, and I hear you 100%. A friend of mine moved actually from London to Seattle, and she was like, I love it here, it's great here. And I went, I can't, Seattle, an amazing city, I couldn't live there. I think because, well, not right now, because of 15 years in Manchester, it's the same. It is grey. Even when it's warm, it's kind of grey. Yes. And I remember going to New York in about, 2015, something like that. And it was freezing. I went, in February, and it was so cold. My phone, if I took it out of my pocket, the battery would die because it was that cold. But the sky was blue. Yeah. And I just walked and walked and walked and walked all around the High Line, all around Central Park, because it's okay being cold, like you said. If you've got that blue sky, you can kind of keep going. But I tell you what, I did struggle, I think, for a few months of each year, just like, please let the sun come back, because we need it. I think as humans, as animals, don't we? We need to see that sun.
Yes. Oh, I think there's vitamin D or something.
Yeah, right.
better for the skin. So you're getting sick of the weather out there. You got married in the UK? Or?
Yes. So yeah, my husband and I got married in Manchester. We had a surprise wedding. So we had invited lots of people. We'd had our daughter, and so we invited everyone to have like a naming celebration for her. She was 1 year old, and we planned to get married for ages. And then it was we were engaged for a long time. We were like, we'll get round to it. And I was like, I don't really want the big wedding. I just want it. And then we thought, hey, why don't we combine it and just surprise everybody? So we surprised everyone, inviting them for for our daughter's sort of celebration day. And then we went, oh, by the way, and we got married at the same time. So that was really good fun. And everyone was, oh, I didn't wear a hat, I didn't bring a gift. I was like, that doesn't matter. That wasn't what it was about for us. So it was really, really fun. Although saying that, I think maybe for our 20th anniversary, I think I do want to have a big party. I kind of want that big party now.
Do you celebrate the anniversary of when you started going out, or the anniversary when you got married?
Well, funnily enough, they are 2 days apart. So
really?
October 18th is the day we met, and then we actually got married on, well, actually October 21st. So 3 days apart, but obviously many, many, many years later. So it's easy to remember. I'm always like, was one of these 2 days, if I give him a card one of those days, I'll be good. I'm not the most romantic person. I'm not very good at remembering things like that. He's really good at it. So I just kind of go, oh yes, here's your card as well, which I quickly write. So yeah.
Here in the US, that's like a switch of roles. Normally it's the opposite. It's just the guy who forgets everything and the girl's the more romantic one. That's funny. So walk us through this point where all of a sudden you say, I can't take it anymore. What led up to that point of switching?
I think it probably felt to a lot of people that we know that it was a sudden thing, but it wasn't a sudden thing. It was adventure, really, adventure that we had craved for such a long time. And I don't for a minute want to say, oh, it was awful, our lives were terrible. We were so lucky. We had lovely, lovely lives. We had a beautiful house we loved. My dad was close by. He'd lived abroad for many, many years, and he was now back, so he was kind of nearby. We had fantastic friends, our neighbors. We had such a brilliant community there where we all just knew each other so well. I had a job that I'd worked really hard to get. It was a great job. My husband was doing really well. He works in tech, and his career was, he'd gone and got a PhD, and things were great. And there was just that little voice saying, there is a world out there. There is a world out there. You need to go and grab it. And we'd go away, and we would pretty much always come to the States at least once a year, quite often twice a year. And we spent time in Colorado and just fell in love with Colorado completely. We put ourselves in Boulder, but we went out all around the Rockies and hiking all around there. And my husband is a big hiker. I'm a semi-serious hiker. I love a hike. I'm like 5-6 miles. I'm ready to go home. He's like all day. I'm driving him in a couple of weeks, 2 hours east, so he can jump on the Arizona Trail for 3 days, and he's just going to go out. So he's that guy. So he is really into the whole hiking and outdoors, and he just adores it. So he loved Colorado so much, and we'd been in San Diego, in fact, the year before, not far from where you grew up, a little bit south, of course, and he'd been hiking all around there, and I'd been doing a lot of hiking. And a friend of ours, actually, who we'd known for years and years and years, came to live in Phoenix. He works in radio like I did, and he got a job in radio here. And he drove from Phoenix to San Diego to see us while we were there. And we said, so Phoenix, I don't really know much about Phoenix. Tell us about Phoenix. And he went, it's this amazing city. You have got an entire city in the desert, and you are surrounded by mountains, and you're just nestled in this valley, and you drive out sort of 20 minutes in any direction, and it is like you have stepped back in time 100 years. You can feel like the old West history like bearing down on you, and the light and the sunsets, and it is magic. And my husband was like, okay, we've got to go. And so we went to Boulder, and we had this amazing time in Colorado, and we absolutely adored it. And then we came to Phoenix, and I was thinking nothing is going to beat Colorado for me. I loved it so much while we were there. And we got here, and there is something about this place. I think Phoenix is somewhere, and Arizona is a state that if it gets under your skin, it is under your skin. And that's what happened to us. And we got here, and we drove out, after a couple of days of being in the city with my friend, we drove out to Sedona, and just driving through the Sonoran Desert, my husband was like, this is it. this is it. We've got to do this. This is, we had talked about it for years. Every day time we'd get back from vacation, how can we live there? How can we live there? What can we do? How can we change our lives? But it just never really tipped across. And then this time we were literally standing in our friend Ian's pool. My husband was holding a beer and he was like, okay, we need to do this. We need to do something about this. And I am not kidding you when I say he took his mobile phone while still standing in the pool. He Googled his job. As I said, he's a senior data science director. And he Googled the job and then the word Phoenix, and a job came up. And he attached his resume to the job, application, and sent it and went, there you go. I've just applied for a job. I'm serious. And again, I'd be lying to say it was instant, but 5 months later, he was offered that job. And it was just kind of the universe going, this is where you need to be. We talked about it for years. We tried a few different things. They never really landed. And this time it was just like, a podcasting company I'd been talking to in a non-serious way, kind of on and off for a couple of years, were like, I was like, so I might move to the States. They were like, would you work for us? We will sponsor you. Can you do, we'll get your work visa. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. And it was like, everything happened at that right time. And there is, again, we were here, David, for 6 days before we decided to change our entire life and move here. That's how it kind of got under our skin.
So walk me through the timeline, just going back a little bit. So you were in Manchester, you decided, hey, let's go try the States. What year was this?
Well, we'd been talking about it for years, for years and years and years. I'd taken a couple of months off. We'd gone and lived in New York City, and I love New York City, but I was like, I don't want to live in a closet, which is about what we can afford. We've got animals and we like to be outside. And so we talked about it a long time, but from the moment that we stood in that swimming pool and said, let's be serious, that was June 2nd, 2018.
2018. And so you were when you went to like San Diego, was that just like a vacation that you were vacationing?
It was a vacation, but it was always a vacation with a view, if you see what I mean. Everywhere we traveled in the States, we were like doing this vacation with could we live here? Could we afford to live here? Would we want to live here? Would it suit our lifestyle? It was like we were in training. We put all these cities up to, would we like to be here? And as I said, Boulder and Colorado were kind of like that. That close to Phoenix. I loved it there very, very much. But there was something about this crazy, wild city. I went to actually like a spoken word storytelling night, and I'd been here about 3 months. And the host stood on stage and she said, Phoenix is a special city. Everyone who comes to Phoenix is either running from something or towards something. And I loved that. And I was like, yes, this is this kind of town of outlaws and miscreants, and it's just fabulous.
That is true. That is the background. It's like the Australia of the United States.
Yeah.
So it's 2018, and you went back to the UK then?
Yeah, we went back because we were here for 6 days. We went back. A very long story short, we didn't hear anything from the job for like 2 weeks, and then we were sitting in a movie theater with our children. And my husband's phone kept ringing. I'm like, turn your phone off. It's buzzing. Turn your phone off. We're trying to watch some terrible animated cartoon. Turn it off. Anyway, he looks down. He's like, it's an American number from the States. We're like, what? Anyway, he gets out and it's the company saying, hey, we want to talk to you. So he had a conversation with them, very keen. They'd been looking for someone for several years because, of course, with this country, you can't just rock up and go, hey, I'm here, give me a job. It's
right? Yes.
The company has to prove that no American can do the job, and they've tried and they can't find anybody and all of this. So it's a long process. But then they turned around and said, oh, actually, no, we're taking the job off the market. And so that was real disappointment. That was like a month later. And then 2 weeks after that, they came back and went, actually, no, we really do need somebody. We can't find anybody else. And then it was like a 3-month interview period, during which time we would look at each other and my husband would say, okay, don't think about it, just give me the answer from your gut. Phoenix, yes or no? And I'd say yes, and then we'd be walking the dog in the rain 2 weeks later and he'd go, Phoenix, yes or no? And I go, yes. And then we'd be out with our friends and we'd have the most amazing, time with our best friends. And we'd be driving back in the cab after going out for dinner with them. And he'd go, Phoenix, yes or no? And I'd go, oh, no. Thinking, I can't leave people. I can't. What are we doing? Are we stupid? Why are we doing this crazy journey? And then I'd look at my job and think, people would go, you're leaving the BBC? And, and I was like, I know. But again, it just kept coming back to that voice saying, there are people you haven't met yet that you're not going to meet if you're in this town, and there are experiences you're never going to have. And it was like, why are we spending all our time and effort and money on flying to a place we want to be for 2 weeks a year and then coming back to the place where, as much as we love the people, we don't want to be anymore? That's one life. And I'm in my late 40s now, and the way that life goes, I lost some people close to me, some close friends, in the few months leading up to the big decision we made. And I just thought, I don't want to put off for another 10, 15 years the things that I know is going to make me really happy. Because what if I don't have 10, 15 years? And I'm not being maudlin, and I'm not being, pessimistic about the future. I'm being realistic about the future. I mean, let's just look at the last year. Who would have guessed what on earth would have happened? We could never have done that. We don't know what's around the corner. So don't put off the thing you really want to do, because you might not have the chance. And what's the point otherwise?
Right. No, I hear you. Life is short.
Yeah.
Life is so short. Well, I'd love to hear about just some of the cultural differences, because it wasn't like you were totally surprised. I mean, you went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Tell us about American culture, and what do you make of it being a Brit, and the differences between?
I mean, it's funny. I always laugh and say, George Bernard Shaw, the writer and poet and playwright and everything, always said that Britain and America is a country separated by the same language. And we are, because we have the same language. And yet sometimes it's just crazy how we can't understand each other. So I walked into a Lowe's, or a Home Depot, as I've learned to call it, not Home Depot. There you go. I still have to think about saying process and intersection and schedule and all these things that we don't say the same in the UK. But so I walked into this hardware store, whatever, and I said, oh yes, I'm looking for a gas bottle for a barbecue. And he was like, excuse me? I went, I need a gas bottle for a barbecue. And he was like, a what for what? And of course, what I needed was a propane tank for a grill. But he had no idea. I also wanted to get some lighting for my garden yard. And so I said, have you got any fairy lights? Excuse me? Fairy lights? What? I said, like you put them up in your garden, your yard, and the little lights, tiny little light. And he went, oh, string lights. And I was like, oh yeah, string lights. So there's been so many instances of language, which, you just don't realize really when you're on vacation, on holiday, because you don't speak about things like propane tanks for grills. But I would say as well, some silly things like humor. I think sometimes the British sense of humor is very dry and quite sarcastic. And sometimes that's caused a few scratched heads amongst people. I was out with a friend of mine, actually, who's also British. He lives in LA, and I went to LA to see him. I've known him years and years and years. And we were chatting away in a diner, and he'd had a cheesecake. And he finished it really quickly because it was really good. And he was like, oh, and it was huge. And he just ate the lot instantly. And the waitress came by. She went, oh, did you like the cheesecake? He said, no, it was awful. And she went, oh, I'm so sorry. Do you need to return that? And it was like, no, that's no. And, silly things like my children, I would just always say to them, oh, you terrible children, come on. And it's just a ridiculous British sense of humor thing that I will say, you dreadful children, come on, hurry up now. And, I've seen some really strange looks in grocery stores where I've gone, stop being awful and come on. But that's how we talk to each other. And it's just, again, that sort of slight British humor. I think For me, really, I mean, I'm not going to get political about anything. I didn't grow up around guns. That is something that is just not part of my experience. And I've got a really close friend now who grew up on a farm in Oklahoma. He grew up hunting. He grew up around guns, and we'll talk about it really openly. And I'm like, I just, it's not. It's something we're used to. It's not. It just seems weird for me to walk into a store and see someone carrying a gun because it's open carry laws in AZ. So as I said, it's not to make a political point, it's to make a I've never seen that before point. So I went into a store to get some hiking boots and went into a full-on hunting store. That was a complete wake-up call for me. I was like, wow, look at all this. And it was, I found that really strange because it's not something I've ever seen. And so there were a few things where, you kind of go, oh, I'm going into an outdoor store to get some hiking boots, and you think it's going to look like a store you've been into in the UK, but it's really not. And so seeing people again with kind of really big, like quite old people with really big guns, I was like, wow, what are you going to do with that? I kind of wanted to talk to them, but I didn't want them to think I was being very judgy, but I was just like, okay, that's unusual. So I think, a few things like that. Obviously, Arizona has got its own identity, which is very different from, say, LA or New York and it pretty much anything on the East Coast. But one thing I found is that everybody I have met, whether they hold different political beliefs to me, different social beliefs, whatever, they're good people. Really good people, and there is always more than connects us than divides us.
Yes.
Whatever, always. And we know that with this country's been through some pretty crazy times over the last few months, and I still do quite a lot of radio in the UK, and people say to me, do you feel safe? Do you feel safe? I've seen all these terrible riots going on and this drama happening and on all different aspects. Do you not want to just come home? Do you feel safe? And I was like, most people are just going to the store and taking their kids to football practice, or don't believe everything you see. It's not like everyone's at each other's throats all the time. We're just getting on with our lives, and there is always more that connects us. And everyone I've met has been so gracious and so welcoming and so generous with their time, and it's been fantastic.
Well, I would imagine, like, from my perspective, I think of the UK and I think of them doing just as badly with the coronavirus as we've done here. Yeah. There hasn't been some of the social stuff that's been happening here, but yeah. I don't know. I think everyone's struggling across the world with all this going on.
Yeah.
It's not easy for anybody.
No, it's not.
Has it been, would you say, particularly difficult for your family, just with being sequestered more, or is it easier in Arizona because you can like get out and enjoy the sunshine compared to here in Minnesota? It's cold right now. I'm not a native, so I don't like going out in this weather for very long. So.
I mean, super lucky. I mean, I think a lot of my friends and family in the UK are really surprised there aren't really any restrictions here in Arizona. I mean, I know Arizona at the moment has got the highest rate per capita in the world. It's not really a leaderboard you want to be top of, but it is what it is. People are still in bars and saloons. I see them, they're still out mixing socially with people perhaps they don't see very often. And, again, you can do what's right for your family, right? And so that's what we're doing, and we're being safe. But we're so lucky because we're in Arizona. And so yes, at the weekend I am 2-minute walk from a mountain, which is, we just bought a house, which is why I wanted to be where we are, because right at the moment we are in, the Phoenix city limits, if you like. But we're right near a mountain. So on Saturday morning, we went out and we walked all around all the trails that are up there for 2 hours, the children, the dog, and I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt in January in Arizona. It was fabulous. And then on Sunday, we went out to the North Mountain Preserve and again, just walked out for hours all through the North Mountain there. So, that's what's fantastic. You can get out and we can see friends socially distant while we're out on hiking, because we all just go out. And so we're all outside together, and that's fantastic. So we feel really, really lucky like that. You know, I talk to friends in the UK who are currently under lockdown. You know, bars are shut, restaurants are shut, gyms are shut, hairdressers are shut. You know, they're desperately trying to get these rates down. And it's cold outside, it's pouring with rain, it gets dark at 3:30 in the afternoon, and I'm thinking, I know where I would rather be. 100%.
For sure, for sure. Well, any for any of our listeners or watchers who may be
Mm.
seeing this that are from the UK, and I was telling you the story about the gentleman who bought a lot in Colorado
Oh,
in Forbes Park, and just this beautiful wooded area in Colorado up in the mountains, and he's really excited to come. What advice would you give him if in coming to the States and looking to live here even part-time? What would you say to him?
oh my gosh. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because one thing I've learned about the United States is you kind of, you are one country, but you're not. If you see what I mean. You look at Alabama versus Washington State, and you
Yes.
kind of go, okay. And I think in a way, and I know there's the whole Brexit issue with the UK, but in a way, the US is kind of a bit like Europe. And by that I mean because you have such different cultural identities, but you are bound together, which is also amazing. But I mean, Colorado is such a beautiful space. It would really just be enjoy it and embrace what you're doing. I mean, I don't know clearly, as you said, if they're going to work or what they're going to do, but I mean, I would love to certainly look at getting some land and building something that is right for us in the coming years. But you know, I was thinking Paul McCartney had that ranch, didn't he, kind of, you know, south of Tucson all those years ago, and I was like, oh, when we drove down there, actually, I mean, we've explored so much here. And I think what is magic about Arizona is here we are in Phoenix, we're in a valley, we're in the Sonoran Desert. I go 1 hour out towards Prescott, out towards Payson, and I'm suddenly out of a desert and I'm into kind of huge boulders. And then I go up to Mogollon Rim and I've just got huge pine forests. And then I head out to Flagstaff and there's pine and mountains, and it's so much cooler. Then you got the red rocks of Sedona. This is all within 2 hours of Phoenix. You go south to Tucson and beyond to kind of Bisbee and Tombstone and those areas, and you have got these wide open plains, huge wide open plains with kind of vast towering cliffs. And I'm like, how is this the same state? How is this the same state? It is
Mm.
incredible that, you know, we were laughing the other day. Someone said, oh wow, with coronavirus you can't travel, so you haven't been back to the UK, have you? My husband's like, I haven't been out of Arizona in 2 years. Well, no, he lies, we went to California once, but he was like, I haven't been out of Arizona. I do not feel restricted. I do not feel like I've been cooped up. I do not feel like I haven't experienced 20 different vacations in one state. And so I would say, you know, even with Colorado, which is a little more uniform in its topography than Arizona, but still explore. You know, you've got this incredible base now, which sounds idyllic in woods. I mean, it's beautiful, but get out and explore, because I think what I do love about the States is everyone has a story. Everyone I met has had a story. And so, you know, you can go up, and we found a little pizza place close to Payson that someone had set up in kind of a log cabin. And the people there sitting at the bar, obviously pre-COVID times, you know, just having a conversation with them about their stories. Everyone has a story, and you can learn something from everybody. And that's what I love, because you know, everyone quite often is from lots of different places. Like you've moved, haven't you, for around the state? So everywhere
Mhm.
you've moved, you've picked up different stories from different people and more knowledge. And that's what's terrific, I think, is this kind of freedom that you have as Americans to travel in your own country and have 50 different experiences. You know, it's
It's
amazing.
so true. So true. Even within a state, like you said, I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many things that you can do and places to go and stuff like that. Um, as we start to wrap up the podcast for today, Sam, I would love to have you think about, if you could buy land, let's say just for recreational use, you're not going to build on it necessarily now. Where would you buy land and why?
I really want to build on it. I mean, before I answer that, in fact, my husband's work colleague, who he goes on these big, crazy, long hiking trips with, is in the process of, well, he's just about to buy some land in upstate New York. So he has family in upstate New York, and he's looking to buy some woodland there. He has an RV, and the plan is that they're slowly going to do it as the kids start to go off to college. They're going to drive over there, spend the summers, the kind of crazy Phoenician summers they're going to spend in upstate New York, and slowly build a house over a number of years. And then eventually, when the kids have flown the nest and gone, they will then move to downscale here in AZ, and have a place on their own land up in upstate New York, which is
Nice.
incredibly attractive. I would, do you know what, David, that's such a difficult question. So do you know, the whole thought of upstate New York really excites me because well, 100 reasons. One, a bit closer to the UK, so I could nip over and see family, which would be nice. I love the New York summers. They're amazing. I think upstate is so beautiful. Right now, my heart is absolutely in Arizona. So, I mean, gosh, take your pick. You could throw me any lot, frankly, in Arizona. I don't mind if I'm down south towards the border down there. I mean, it's a little cooler down there, even in the summer, than it is here in the valley. So that's beautiful. I mean, I do kind of have a real soft spot for south of Tucson, actually. But then equally, Flagstaff, Prescott, anywhere around those necks of the woods, also amazing. I'm happy to do California. I'm very happy to do Colorado. Texas, New Mexico. What do you got?
New Mexico was another surprising place as I've been on this journey with this business the last 3 years, how diverse New Mexico is with, like Arizona, in that there's lots of woods out there. And of course, the desert stuff and all the interesting things to see. I like New Mexico a lot, personally.
I do.
Prices are generally pretty good for land, and you can get wooded stuff. And that's true in Arizona too, with the exception of, like a Flagstaff or Show Low. You get really expensive the closer you are to town. But, you go out a little bit and you can get land for a real good price, 15, 20, 30 minutes away from some of those places. So I love it. I love it. Well, as we finish with the podcast for today, Sam, what's any final thoughts you have that you want to leave us with?
I would just really say, if there's that thing you've dreamt of doing, whether it is to own your own land or build your own place or go and live somewhere new or even take up a new hobby, or don't put it off. It's scary to make a big change in your life. So maybe start with a little change. But even if you do go and leap and make that big change, you won't regret it. Things, as you mentioned, my podcast, Sam Walker's Desert Diaries, some things have gone horribly wrong for us over the last year. We've had some really, really difficult times. We've unfortunately, I won't go into them now, but one did involve having to leave our house under police custody because we were threatened by somebody really, really unpleasant. 99.9% of the people I've met, fantastic. One very bad person indeed. Wow. We had an animal who was killed by a coyote. It's been really jumping into this new life feet first into this kind of crazy Southwestern life. So we have had some crazy stuff happen, and times have been really hard. Would not change it. I would not take it back for a minute. And you know what? Even when things are tough, I'd take feeling alive over feeling bored and frustrated any day of the week. So yeah, whatever your little dream may be, you're not going to regret it. Just do it.
Love it. Great advice. And if people want to check out your podcast, they want to follow your adventures, where can they find you?
Well, I'm all over the normal places, but Sam Walker's Desert Diaries is where you can find me on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Google Podcasts. I'm on Instagram at Sam Walker Radio and on Twitter at Walker Sam. And you can find a page on Facebook as well called facebook.com/See You in the Desert.
I love it. All right. Well, that wraps up the episode for today. Everybody, make sure to check out Sam on all those links. We'll make sure to try and grab a bunch of them and put them in our show notes. Make sure to tune in about every Monday, 11:30 a.m. Central. We go live talking about land. And if you have a question, we would love to talk about it on Facebook. Make sure to send it to me, contact, CONTACT at GENFAMproperties.com. Thank you so much for tuning into Land Stories with me, Dave Deniston, and our guest, Sam Walker. Have a good one, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.